Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of John, the 13th chapter. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Yahushai knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, and that would be by way of his death, right? Being a sacrifice, suffering the crucifixion, having loved his own, which were in the world, he loved them on to the end, and that is his disciples, right? It says here, and supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him. So he saw it, okay, that would be the perfect time to actually betray him. And, he had to do that because that's how it was set up to happen from the beginning anyway. In fact, when Yahushua chose his 12 and he included Judas, it was really for this purpose. Yahushua, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he was come from God and went to God, he riseth from supper and laid aside his garments and took a towel and girded himself. And after that he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then cometh he to Simon Peter and saith unto him, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? And what Yahushua was doing here was the act of a servant, okay, or one that is, usually you would have the younger or the those that are more the master, like they would have their feet being washed, okay, as opposed to the other way around. And Yahushua, being their master, was doing this unto them, which was a sign of humility, right? To teaching them that the greater thou art, the more humble thyself, right? You have to be more willing to serve. But also, it was symbolic of him completely cleansing them, right? Or washing them. The scriptures talk about that, the washing of water by the word. So it says here, then cometh he to Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? Yahushua answered and said unto him, what I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. So it was symbolic, but Peter didn't understand at the time. But he's like, afterwards, right, when the Spirit comes upon you and your understanding is opened, you'll get why I did this. Peter saith unto him, thou shalt never wash my feet. So he probably curled his toes, move his feet around. No, Lord, you can't do that. Now in Peter's mind, though he got rebuked a good couple of times, in his mind, he was doing it like from a genuine standpoint, right? Like, no, Lord, that's almost insulting for me to sit there and say, hey, come and wash my feet. You're our master, right? Or even when he protested against the Lord, to rebuke the Lord, to say, no, Lord, you're not, we're not just going to sit here and let you die and let you, be killed. But that was from the perspective of really speaking from the flesh, though. But Yahushua understood why these things needed to happen. Yahushua answered him, if I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. Simon Peter saith unto him, oh, Lord, no, not my feet only, but my hands and my head too. Please, there, the whole body. Might as well just do the whole body. And Yahushua saith to him, he that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit, and ye are clean, but not all. So he's saying those that are already washed, you don't really need to wash anything else but your feet, mainly because, like, if you notice, in I forget which gospel was in, either Matthew, Luke, or Mark, but it mentioned when Yahushua went to, was it one of the Pharisees' house, and there was a woman that cried and basically washed his feet with her tears and wiped it with her hair. And he said how, here I am, I'm in your house. You didn't offer me any water for my feet, right? But she has washed my feet with her tears. And that's because usually the attire or the footwear they wore was like open-toed, right? Like sandals. And the roads were not necessarily like what you have here with your American roads, tarred up. The roads were more like, oftentimes walking paths would be like dirt roads or sand, and that would make your feet dirty. So most of the time, the places you really need to clean will be your feet. But Yahushua is saying here, that's really all you need to wash, for those that are already washed. But it's clean every whit. So everywhere else, you're already clean. And ye are clean, but not all. And what he was saying that to say that 11 of you are clean in the spirit, but one is not, referring to Judas. For he knew who should betray him. Therefore he said, ye are not all clean. So Judas wasn't one of his. Judas was not, of the elect, right? He wasn't clean in the spirit. But he had to be there to do his job. So after he had washed their feet and had taken his garments and was set down again, he said unto them, know ye what I have done to you? So do you understand what I've just done? Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say, well, for so I am. So you're right, I am your master. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet, right? And that's going to show that humility, right? Being willing to serve one another. For I have given you an example that ye should do as I have done unto you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. See, and we are servants of the Lord. So if the Lord was able to do it, if he was able to humble down and he was able to serve them, then we should be able to serve one another, right? And as he's saying here, the servant, just as the servant isn't greater than his Lord, you that are sent are not greater than the one that sent you. If a king sends a message, the messenger is not going to be in a greater position than the king. That's why the messenger is the one being sent. If ye know these things, happy are ye if ye do them, right? So now that you know, it behoove you to actually put it into practice, right? Don't just, well, Lord said this, now I know, and then call it a day, throw it behind your head somewhere. I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture may be fulfilled. He that eateth bread with me hath lifted up his heel against me. That wouldn't be able to be fulfilled if he didn't choose Judas to basically add him to the rest of them. Because in keeping Judas close, he would be able to eat of his bread. And that would fulfill that prophecy, right, in the book of Psalms concerning one that is close to him. If one eats of your bread, you break bread with them, they're close to you. And lifting up the heel against you is like, rebelling or kicking back against you. Like when you deal with cattle, for example, or animals or ox, if you are a husbandman or you're trying to plow, oftentimes you would have an ox that may not want to move, and then the husbandman will have like a goad or a whip or a sharp object, and they'll try to poke the ox to try to get it to go. And sometimes they wouldn't go, and sometimes they would actually kick back, kind of like what the Lord told Paul. Why do you kick against the pricks? Because the pricks are to lead you in the right way, but you're kicking back in a sign of rebellion. Okay, but point here in translation meaning that one that was close to him betrayed him, which was Judas. So he's saying, I'm not speaking of you all as in not all of you are clean, but I know who I chose, and I chose Judas as well to fulfill the scripture that one that ate of my bread, one that was close, betrayed me. Now I tell you before it come, that when it is come to pass, ye may believe that I am he. So that's why, as we're reading in the book of John, John is able to mention Judas what he did, why the Lord said certain things, because after it came to pass, they remembered. Oh, that's what Yahushua was talking about. Oh, that's what he meant. Oh, and them aha moments were just nonstop. Now I tell you before it come, that when it has come to pass, ye may believe that I am he. Right? Because when you're told beforehand and then it comes to pass, it confirms your belief or strengthens it that much more. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that receiveth whomsoever I send receiveth me. So any servant that is sent of the Lord, if you receive them, you receive the Lord. Just like if you receive the Lord, you receive the Most High because he sent the Lord. For example, right? If what happened when which Persian king? I think it was Darius, the Persian king, when he sent messengers throughout Europe, throughout Athens and all those areas, and Sparta and all those areas, to have them give earth and water. I believe that's what it was, to show subservience. When in the movie 300 they show you how King Leonidas kicks the messenger down the well, right? What do you think that signified? He didn't receive the messenger. So that meant war against the king who sent the messenger. That was a dishonor onto the one who sent the messenger. So everybody knew you don't touch or harm the messenger, because if you do, you're disrespecting the one who sent the messenger, right? So as Yahushua is saying, if you receive one who is sent of him or from him, you receive him. And if you receive him, then you receive the one who sent him. And he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. When Yahushua had thus said, he was troubled in spirit. After he said that, his spirit troubled him. He was vexed and testified and said, verily, verily, I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. You know, you got this guy Judas over here, probably almost choked on the food he was eating, if he was still eating, looking left and right. Oh, shit. Then the disciples looked one on another, once again, looking left and right, doubting of whom he spake. Somebody going to betray? Who? How old? Now there was leaning on Yahushua's bosom one of his disciples whom Yahushua loved. Now, this doesn't mean, like, for example, everybody's just sitting up at a table and this disciple is talking about John, right? And then John is just like curled up in Yahushua's arms or something. But this deals with how one of the common customs of how they would eat certain meals and how they were positioned in doing so. So let's look this up here. Let's type this in here. Let's say, let's see, reclining, eating. Let's try to get some context on this. Let's see, Bible custom. Maybe I can find something on this. Yeah. Reclining at the table. Sure. So it says here, in the cultural, there was actually a site that I found, and it had a diagram for it. Why were they reclining? I think it was this one here. There we go. Yeah, so you can see an image here where it's like the way that they're seated, right, is not necessarily just upright, but it'll explain a bit more as we I'm just going to read this real quick. So it says here, why were they reclining during the Last Supper? While reading John 13, it had me wondering, this is by an author here, why the word reclining was used during the Last Supper, probably in a different translation, not the KJV. They used the word reclining. When Yahushua talked about his upcoming betrayal, the same words appear in the books of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So they were eating, but they were reclining. Here's what I found out. During the ancient times, people, especially the Romans and the Greeks, ate while in a reclining position rather than sitting down. There may be a table in the middle, and couches were set up around it. A couch may accommodate 1 to 3 people. A couch, for one, basically looks like this. So that's that thing, that the bottom part right there that they're on. So there's this like slight lean. Okay, that's a couch that accommodates for one person on it at a time. If a couch can accommodate three, the most important person occupies the middle part. The other person reclines above him and the other below him. They support themselves with their left hand and eat with their right. So that's why it looks like this. So you see how the guy in the top left, okay, you have that, like their elbow is sort of leaning, and then they reach with their right hand, to the meal or whatever it is that they're consuming over there. If you're going to consider this position, you can come up with a rationalization that perhaps one of the reasons why John was called the beloved is because, aside from obviously being one of the closest to Yahushua, together his brother James and Peter, he perhaps always occupied the same spot near Yahushua during mealtime. It says here, if he was the one reclining below Yahushua, as in John 13 and 23, and then the precept here, John 21 and 20, that's the one of them, the disciples whom Yahushua loved, was reclining next to him. And John 21 and 20, Peter turned and saw that the disciple whom Yahushua loved, once again, they're quoting from a different translation, was following them. This was the one who leaned back against Yahushua at the supper and had said, Lord, who is going to betray you? His head would certainly be at the same level with Yahushua's chest, i.e. bosom, and could easily give the picture that he is indeed near Yahushua's heart, literally and figuratively. Let's see. Besides, the basic rule is that the host would recline at the head of the table, and his guests would be arranged according to esteem or closeness. If John were close to Yahushua physically, then he was emotionally too. So here are a couple of different pictures it seems that they were able to gather over here, in like how certain positions people were in when they would partaking of certain meals here. So let's see if they have any more. Okay, this is mainly about the images here, but the point is here it was it goes into like how they were positioned, right, in terms of when they were eating this. So not because you have people that they'll read and say, well, what does it say he was leaning on his bosom? Because they're imagining like everybody is sitting, right? And if you're all sitting and eating, then is John sitting down and has his head just tilted onto Yahushua's chest, like, So just going into like some of the manners and customs of the ancient times and biblical times and how they differ from now, which gives you a better insight. And for example, sometimes when the scriptures talk about the example the Lord gave when he mentioned the new wine in old bottles, when you hear the word bottle, you're thinking of a wine bottle today, which is probably made of glass, and it's not. How is that going to burst unless it like breaks? It falls down and breaks, right? How would pouring wine in that make it burst? Because you're thinking of a modern day bottle when you hear the word bottle. But when you go back to the ancient world, you realize they weren't using bottles like what you're thinking of today. They were using wine. Wine skins, you could say, which was like what it was called. It was really just a pouch, so it could expand, and it was a bit flexible like that. So it was just a different time and a different custom, and that's why it's important to be well acquainted with these customs, or at least read about it, so that when you read the scriptures, because the setting of these scriptures are during that time, so it'll make more sense to you. So continuing here, verse 24, Simon Peter therefore beckoned to him, so he signaled to him that he should ask who it should be of whom he spake, right? Who is it that he's talking about concerning the betrayal? Then lying on Yahushua's breast saith unto him, Lord, see, lying, right, not sitting, who is it? Yahushua answered, he it is to whom I shall give a sop when I have dipped it. And when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. Now, it's possible too that maybe in his response he said it because John was close to him, right? So he said it to where maybe only John heard it because of the positioning they were in. But in terms of actions, everybody would have saw what had happened here, you know. And then maybe after that, John might have told, yo, he said it was who he was. It's Judas, man, it's Judas. He gave him the sop, because then it'd be a little awkward, right? If he just said this out loud, and then Judas is there, and he just like, because think about it, Judas would have been, he would have caught on to the fact, right? And it would have been a kind of awkward situation here, right? Where Yahushua says out loud, "Oh, the one that I give the sop to is the one who's going to betray me," and then he gives the sop to Judas, and Judas just reaches for it anyway. So yeah, that's just speculation there, But possibly could have said it low enough to where maybe only John heard it. And actually, let me see if I cross-reference this. Let's see if it's mentioning. Well, yeah, he answered, "He it is that dippeth his hand with me in the dish." Cool. All right. Anyway, continuing on. Long story short, we've identified here that Judas is the betrayer. And after that, after the sop, Satan entered into him. Into who? Into Judas. Then said Yahushua unto him, that thou doest, do quickly. Go do what you got to do. So Judas here was just like how Peter betrayed the Lord. He denied the Lord. He didn't betray the Lord. He denied the Lord 3 times. Peter before that said, I'd rather die with you. But how come he still did it anyway? How 3 times at that? Because the spirit was on him that he had to do that. So the same thing with Judas. Nothing was going to stop him at this moment. He had to do this. So even though Yahushua is basically signaling to the point where you pretty much consciously should be aware that, okay, I think he knows, the spirit was on Judas that he had to do it anyway. So he went and did it anyway. Because a normal person would stop and say, is he on to me? Because when you are secretly plotting something, you're very, very suspicious. You're very wary about everything. The slightest thing somebody says, you're taking that to the extreme. Like, well, what do you mean? Is this person really on to me? Like, do they know something? So if at this point, if this night is the night you decide to betray him, and then he tells you go do that which you have to do quickly, a normal person would say, shit, I think he's onto it. Like, yo, but Satan entered into him, so he couldn't avoid that fate. Now no man at the table knew for what intent he spake this unto him. See, so they didn't know, okay, well, why did he say this? And ultimately, betraying is like one thing, but like, what does that actually mean? They hadn't fully grasped that he was going to go to the Pharisees. They were going to go and get the soldiers and come there and grab Yahushua up and then crucify him and kill him. So all the things Yahushua was saying, they still hadn't been pieced together in their heads just yet. Until they saw all those soldiers there with the swords and the staves, and then they're like, oh shit. Damn. That's wicked, Judas. So it says here, verse 29, for some of them thought because Judas had the bag, which is he was like in charge of their treasury, that Yahushua said unto him, buy those things that we have need of against the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. He then, receiving the sop, went immediately out, and it was night. Therefore, when he was gone out, Yahushua said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. Why did he say that? Because he was about to die. But through his death, he would be glorified. He would be raised up, having conquered death, having defeated death. It says, and God is glorified in him, right? Because in Yahushua's, doing as his Father commanded, he would bring glory to the Most High. If God be glorified in him, God shall also glorify him in himself, and shall straightway glorify him. See, so if God is glorified in Yahushua, God will glorify Yahushua, the Most High, that is. Little children, yet a little while I am with you. Ye shall seek me, and as I said unto the Jews, whither I go, ye cannot come. So now I say unto you. So he's basically letting them know like the time is drawing closer and closer. Where now, because once he was separated from them, that was it. Like after that, until after he rose from the dead. But that night, when they came and took him, remember it said that the rest fled. Now John, I believe it'll tell you that, and Peter were part of those that followed Yahushua. Like they stuck around and snuck around to see what would happen. But he was telling them, look, my time is near where I'm gonna go back to the Father now. And like I told the Jews before, that where I go they can't come. I'm saying that to you because you can't follow me into the spirit world. You have to be on here to do what you got to do. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another. And the thing about that is, it's the love in Yahushua is different than the love of the world. People have, you can have people who have grown up together, right? Homeboys, childhood friends for years. And then over one small thing, they become the worst of enemies. They don't talk to each other for the next decade. But in the truth, right, in the love, in Yahushua, our love for one another is glued, or we're glued together in this body through our love for Yahushua. That's why you can see or meet a brother that you've never met before. But if they're in the same spirit of worshiping Yahushua, that love is naturally there, right? So we have love one to another that is different than the love in the world, because we are the disciples of the Lord. Simon Peter said unto him, Lord, whither goest thou? Yahushua answered him, Whither I go, thou canst not follow me now, but thou shalt follow me afterwards, which was a foreshadowing of Peter's death and the rest of them, right? Eventually they would die as well. But Peter was also going to die. But he just wasn't going to go at the same time as Yahushua. Right? Yahushua was going to have to die. He was going to have to go back to the spirit world. But the rest had to stay and continue the work, the apostleship. Peter said unto him, Lord, why cannot I follow thee now? I will lay down my life for thy sake. Yahushua answered him, Wilt thou lay down thy life for my sake? Verily, verily, I say unto thee, the cock shall not crow till thou hast denied me thrice. Meaning you're going to deny me 3 times before the cock crows. And I'll read this in the NLT because it adds a bit more emphasis to Yahushua's response here. So Peter says here he would lay down his life for the Lord. And the NLT, Yahushua answered, Die for me? I tell you the truth, Peter. Before the roosters crow tomorrow morning, you will deny me 3 times. Or you will deny 3 times that you even know me. So much for dying for me. Now imagine hearing that. It's a very interesting thing, just a point to make here, to hear something like that. And it's interesting because you are full, in your mind at least, you believe you're fully persuaded of one thought. Like in your mind, you're literally saying there's nothing that's going to make me betray you, Lord. Nothing. Like I'm ready to even lose my life for your sake. And yet one that you believe is your master, is the Messiah, who you know his word is certain, is telling you something contrary to how you're feeling. And he's telling you, no, you're actually going to deny me 3 times, which is the exact opposite of how you are feeling and what you're saying. That's the delusion of free will, right? Or the illusion of it. Thinking, well, it's up to me, but it's not. And then when after the fact, when you come back to your senses, it's almost unbelievable because you did a complete 180 when before it happened, you thought you wouldn't do it. So how did you end up doing that very same thing you said would never happen? And then afterwards you sit back and it's just like, yo, like how? Like why? But it's how the Lord set it up. You can't, and that shows you who hath resisted his will. You can't resist the will of the Lord. He will put you in that position and you will end up doing whatever is written for you to do. Sometimes you'll get to a point where you have to accept it yourself. And you'll sit there like conflicted in your mind, like, yo, I can't believe how things got to the point where I'm literally now doing or saying or about to do the very same thing that I swore up and down that I would never do. How did it get to this point? That's how the will of the Lord works. But anyway, that brings us to the end of the book of John, the 13th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.